you here. If you are new to me, I am Rebecca. I am the Wanderlust VA. And every so often, about a couple times a month, I do a free masterclass on a really juicy topic. And the goal for the masterclass, Sharon, I can hear you. Hi, that makes me so happy. Thank you for saying that. The goals of these masterclasses is that they're potent, they're short, and you walk away feeling like, oh, I get it now. So a lot of my masterclasses are really micro topics. We get really specific because running a business, there's so much to learn and there's so much to know. So I try to keep my masterclasses really micro. So today's masterclass is about business expenses, which is just a small portion of taxes as a business person. But again, we're going to get really micro. I want to start off with, hi, Sarah. Thank you for saying hi. I want to start off by running a little fun giveaway. Some of you already know the Wanderlust VA has a little swag shop. We've got journals and mugs and some fun things for traveling. Really, really awesome stuff. So I want to give away some of our swag in the Wanderlust VA swag shop. In order to enter this giveaway, what I'd love you to do is to go into the Wanderlust Virtual Assistant Facebook community. All of you are probably members. And just post your biggest takeaway at the end of today's masterclass. There's over 2,000 women in that group. Not all of them see my posts that there is a masterclass about something that's really topical, like business expenses, especially heading into the new year. And so if you post into the Wanderlust Virtual Assistant Facebook group, just like a number one takeaway, it's really going to serve the other ladies in that group. They're going to see it and be like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I can send them the free replay of the masterclass. It just kind of helps spread the word, because business expenses is a part of business that I notice women get into virtual assisting or they get into online freelance work and they don't know anything about it. It's always a really pleasant surprise, business expenses, and I'll explain why that is. But if we knew about it sooner, I think some of us would have started earlier. Business expenses really helps debunk the myth that starting a business is expensive and it costs a lot. Yeah, there are costs into starting a business, but luckily around tax time we are rewarded for being entrepreneurs and we get to see some of that kind of come back in return, and we'll talk about that. So that is the giveaway. Pop into the Wanderlust Virtual Assistant Facebook group, post your number one giveaway so the other ladies can read it. I'll put your name into a hat of sorts and I'll draw a winner and we will have a prize from the Wanderlust Virtual Assistant shop. Really, really cool. I can put the shop in the comments too if you want. So, starting today's masterclass about business expenses / write-offs. I have to preface, that I am not an accountant. I am not a tax professional. I have to say that. Okay? Asterisks! I am not an accountant. I am not a tax professional. However, I have been an online independent contractor, sole proprietor, and now incorporated. So I do have some experience. But again, not an accountant. Have to say that. Okay. However, my number one piece of advice when it comes to business accounting, especially around tax time, is to hire a professional. Before virtual assisting, I always just did my own taxes. It was pretty straightforward. You fill in you get a slip from work and you fill in that line and you submit it, and it's really, really easy. When you start to work for yourself, when you start to run a business, taxes can get a bit more complicated, not in a bad way, but in a way that if you missed something, you might be losing out on some return. So I recommend to all of the women who go through my virtual assistant programs, just to around tax time, hire a tax professional. They literally are around $200. One shot. You just pay them in tax season, $200. It's a pretty big average going rate. So it's worth every penny. Makes your life a lot easier as well. And they normally make themselves accessible to ask questions too. So highly, highly, highly recommend hiring a professional at tax time. Best money spent. And you can expense it. Okay, let's dive into that. So I want to now explain expenses / write-offs. Just to double check, I checked what's the difference between expenses and write-offs, and there isn't really. It's sort of this interchangeable vocabulary. Expenses has a deeper definition. Write-offs is like more specific around taxes. So I'm going to try to use them interchangeably so that it normalizes, like when I say expenses, I mean write-offs, and when I say write-offs, I mean expenses in the context of submitting around tax time. Okay, so what is a business expense? This actually does have a pretty specific definition in the eyes of the government, okay? A business expense is a cost occurred in business. Pretty straightforward, okay? Welcome to business. Business has costs, okay? The intent of the expense must be motivated by profit, okay? So that's pretty straightforward, but let me sort of reword it so that it really catches in. If you are going to, write off a cost occurred in your business, it has to be a cost occurred because you're trying to make profit in your business, right? So if you had a business and you bought a pony, and the pony had nothing to do with the profits in your business, then that's something that you can't expense, right? But if you had a business and you wanted to pay for Facebook ads, because that's the intent, is to create profit from that, then that is a business expense, okay? Here's the cool part. Profit doesn't have to have happened for you to still be able to expense it. So you might start a business, and in the first year of business, you have all of these costs up front, but you don't actually make any profit the first year. That's still okay. You don't have to have made profit. The costs just have to make sense that you are trying to create profit. Cool? Let me know in the comments if that's not clear, or let me know in the comments if that makes sense. Cool. I love it. Patsy, I'm from Mexico, so taxes work different, but I love to listen, so I'll try to use whatever I can. Amazing. Yes. And I have to emphasize that as well. I am speaking from like my experience in North America, Canada, and the US. But here's the thing about taxes is that it's really beneficial to even get specific in your state. Like go to your states.gov website. Taxes aren't complicated. And that's the beauty of them, luckily. So they don't have to be scary, but everything's a little different, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best out of it and you're following the rules. Again, using a tax professional is the best money you can spend in your business. So yes, use what I'm saying. Maybe it inspires you to ask some questions in your own country, and then you head to your country's government website, and you're like, oh, can you do that here? So totally. Okay. So expenses and write-offs, how does it apply at tax time? How does it work? Okay. So the common confusion, and I had this as well, is that if you have an expense in your business, like you buy a laptop, the thought is that you get that money back. Your laptop costs $2,000, and then you're like, oh, I write it off. And the thought is that you get that $2,000 back for the laptop. That is not how it works. That is incorrect. Okay? That is incorrect. How expenses work at tax time is that you take the revenue created in your business, you minus the expenses, you minus the costs that went into generating that revenue. The remainder is what you get taxed on. Okay? So you don't see that $2,000 laptop come right back into your bank account. What you see at the end of tax season is lower taxes. So you have your revenue, and instead of getting taxed on your revenue, you have revenue minus your expenses, and then you get taxed on the remainder. Right? So your taxes are lower if you have expenses that lower your revenue. That's when you see it back, okay? So if you make $100 and you have $10 in expenses, you are taxed on $90. Okay? So instead of getting taxed on the $100 of revenue, it's $100 minus your $10 of expenses, you get taxed on $90. That's where you start to see the money come back, is that you just get taxed on a lower amount. That's how expenses work. That's how write-offs work. Okay? Now, I have to clarify. It's a percentage or a certain amount of your expenses that gets minused from the revenue. And there's a bunch of different categories, and I'm going to go through the categories here. I've written them out, so I'm over here looking at my notes. So not all categories are like, okay, here's your revenue, and then we are minusing all $2,000 of the laptop, and then you're getting taxed on the remainder. Not all categories work like that. Some categories are like, only a certain percentage of the expense will be minused from the revenue. Some categories, it's like, yeah, the whole thing will be minus from your revenue. Some categories are like, up to a certain dollar amount will be minused from the revenue. When you start to Google write-offs and expenses in your country, I Googled them in the US last night, I Googled them in Canada last night, because that's most of my followers. The list is really long. It's a really long list, and it's exciting. You're like, this is awesome. I can expense a lot of things, but each of them is treated really differently. Like food in your business is treated differently than supplies, which is treated differently than, the other things that I'm going to go down here right now. Okay. Hello, Elizabeth. Thanks for hopping on. So this is why an accountant is so important, because an accountant literally just goes down the list and it's like, okay, here's the total expense. The government accepts a certain percentage of it. So it's not always 100%. In some categories, you do get to minus 100% of the cost. But it doesn't really matter. If you're going to buy it anyway for your business, then yeah, you want it to be subtracted from your revenue so that you're taxed on a lower amount. Okay? That's how business expenses work. Let me know if this is not quite resonating, because then I will go deeper into it. I'm now going to go through a couple of examples of what you can expense in your business. This is what I really want you to have, these aha moments, because a lot of us, we go into starting a virtual assistant business or starting an online freelance business and we think, I've got to buy a laptop, I've got to get higher speed internet, I might need a better phone, and you just start to think of all these things that you have to pay for, where maybe at your 9 to 5 or at your office job, these things were provided to you. At a 9 to 5, at an office job, the computer that is provided to you is paid for by the company as a business expense. It then gets subtracted from their revenue and they get taxed on the remainder. So you can see why, if you have high expenses, you will get taxed on not a lot. And I think we can read the news and we can see a lot of big mega corporations do this. They have high expenses. If you had $100 in revenue and $100 of expenses, guess how much you'd get taxed on? 0. In the most simplest form. Okay, so hope some of the gears are turning for y'all ladies. Okay, so here are some of the things that you can expense as a virtual assistant, online freelancer. Okay, supplies, your laptop, your ring light, your headphones, your laptop stand, your second monitor, repairs to your laptop, those kind of things. When you buy them, you keep track of it, and then at tax time, you say, I made this much for my virtual assistant clients, I paid for this much to go into that happening, You get taxed on the remainder. Okay? Home office. This is a big one. Okay? Your home office as a virtual assistant, as a digital nomad, as an online freelancer, we are most likely stepping away from working in a commercial office and we're going to be working from home. Well, guess what that means? A portion of your rent / mortgage gets to be expensed. Portion of your internet. Portion of your utilities. Portion of your cell phone, portion of your property tax, property insurance, all of these things. Now, why do I say portion? With your home office, the government assumes you also live in your house and use some of those things for personal reasons. So it's not all of it. This is an example of something where it's like that is not 100% write-off. Now, how each country determines it, and maybe even each state's a little different, but sort of the rule of thumb, there's 2 rules of thumb. One is like, what is the square footage of your home office? And then what is that a percentage of the square footage of your entire home? And then what is that for rent / mortgage? Some tax accountants accept like how many hours a day to spend working in your home office. Divide that by 24, right? So if you spend 8 hours a day working in your home office, 24 hours, that's 30% of your rent, which is fun because you're probably going to be paying that rent anyway because you're living there. But now, working from home, you get to write some of that off. Sharon, does home office expenses include things like furniture, desk, like da-da-da-da-da? Yes. So that falls under something called capital, business capital, opposed to supplies. And here's why. Capital, part of the definition of capital is that it depreciates over time. So the assumption is that you buy a desk and it will start to depreciate. So yes, you can expense that. And that falls under a different category called capital. Okay? So really, really cool. Another category that I think is worth noting is advertising and operations. Facebook ads. If you are someone who runs Facebook ads or you have a client that's running Facebook ads, the money going into the ads can be written off at tax time. Now, what does that mean? It means you take your revenue, you minus what you put into Facebook ads, and then you get taxed on the remainder, right? Networking event tickets. Do you buy a ticket to go to a conference? Do you buy tickets to go to a networking dinner? Write that off. These are all things that you are doing to improve your business and create more profit. These are costs incurred in your business that are with the intention to create more profit, right? Operating subscriptions. You have a website and you pay like a hosting fee, an annual hosting fee. Social media scheduler. Do you have that fee? Do you pay for extra space in your like Google Drive? More space in your Google storage space. That was the word I was looking for. Storage space in your Google Drive. All of these operational costs for your business. You can write these off. The next big category, I cannot emphasize this one enough, is fees. When you get into business as a virtual assistant, online freelancer, I don't care, you will incur fees. There is always a handful of students in my VA program that try to skirt around these fees, and it's nearly impossible to do. Here's the thing. You get to write off these fees. So it's not like you receive a payment from your client through PayPal and the PayPal fee is a cost to you. No, it's an expense. Okay? So that's invoicing fees. You know, when PayPal takes off a little amount, that is something you can write off. Stripe takes off a little amount, that is something you can write off. These are fees of being in business. Welcome to entrepreneurship. You cannot get around them. I know you're like, it's costing me so much to be in business. But what you will see at tax time is these costs make your revenue smaller and then you get taxed on it. Your taxable revenue goes down, right? Accountant fees, legal fees. Let's say at tax time, you pay a tax professional $200 to just handle it all for you. You expense that $200. So it's not actually like, it's not a full $200 to your business, right? And there are some arguments that the more you expense, the less you get taxed on, right? Business registration fees, legal fees, fees. They are unavoidable, but you get to write them off. Okay, a couple other ones, work meals, right? If you end up meeting up with a client or something and you go out and you have a business lunch, there's a portion of that you can write off. Really, really cool. Gifts to clients. If you send a gift to a client, you can write that off. It's a certain amount. Charitable donations. I mean, charitable donations doesn't necessarily directly relate to your business profit. I just think the government loves charitable donations. Sharon, do you need a business license as a VA and can you expense the cost of that? So, good question. Business license is actually something you need to look up in your city. It's even narrower. Most likely, yes. Your city will require you to have some kind of business license. It's never expensive, I don't think. I mean, I've never seen a business license more than $100 a year. And yes, you expense it. But that is something, I asked a lawyer about that and they said that it's literally city by city, not even just state by state or province by province. Okay? So those are some really common virtual assistant expenses, costs that are incurred in running your business that are under the intent to create more profit that you get to expense at tax time. I know I'm going to say this 100 times, but I just want to really, really make it clear. Expenses are revenue minus the cost of running your business, and then you get taxed on what's left. So you're not getting that $2,000 laptop money back. It's not like, oh, thank you for paying $2,000 for your laptop. Here's a reimbursement check. It is not a reimbursement. What you do is you get less taxed. Hope that makes sense. So the last big one that always catches people off guard. I've got like an invisible blonde hair on my eyelashes. I can feel it. I can't see it. I can't reach it. The big one that always catches a lot of women off guard is you can write off business education. Okay? If you invest in a program or a course or books or a speaking event or a seminar or a mastermind that is related to your business, you get to write it off. Education is a very generous category for expenses. This is really fun. This is really, really exciting. Okay? If you invest in a virtual assistant course program, social media course program, you invest in a Pinterest management course program, you invest in a 90-minute strategy call with a coach, you a mastermind, everything. This is all education, and you can write this off. So when you're shopping around or you're curious about learning more, you're looking at mentorship and they say like, here's the investment level, and that might be a scary number. Remember that when tax season comes around, you get to subtract that from your revenue and then you will pay less taxes. And there's a lot of arguments for that. People are like, let's have lots of expenses so that I don't have to pay a lot of taxes. Everyone does business differently, but that is something I see people do. Okay? Now I want to list a few items of what are your clients' expenses. Okay? You are in business as a virtual assistant, as a online freelancer. You are in business, so you have your expenses. But please remember, your clients are also in business, and some of the expenses are theirs. So I want to give you a couple of examples. The hosting platform for their website, that is their expense. That is on their credit card. That is something they pay for, and that is something they deal with. Okay? The scheduling software for their social media, that's not your expense. That's them. Okay? The Canva Pro account for their graphics, that is their subscription. That is something they pay for. Okay? Especially Canva Pro is a big one. If you are a online freelancer who really kind of like specializes in graphic design, and maybe you're creating a lot of logos or you're creating a lot of graphics, like, yeah, maybe you have a Canva Pro account and you expense that subscription on your end. However, if you are like a virtual assistant and you're in a bunch of your clients' businesses and they need graphics for their business, they pay for the Canva Pro account. A lot of these expenses, ladies, are not yours. If it is for their business, they pay for it. Too many times I have seen virtual assistants get tangled paying for their clients' stuff, thinking that's how it's supposed to be done. No. And here's one way to put it, okay? If you were to break away from a client, you're going to take everything that's yours, right? If you walked away with the Canva Pro account that has all of their graphics in it, that's a huge problem for them, right? Maybe you're like, oh, but I'll just like send them all to them. Then that is a telltale sign that it was their Canva Pro account subscription that they should have been paying. I don't care if you've got 3 clients and they each have Canva Pro accounts and you just think, oh, but if I just had one, I could work with all of them and then we'd all be... No. Their graphics, their subscription. Okay? The Google Drive storage space for their files, they pay for. The hosting platform for their podcast, they pay for. And I don't care if you're in a rush and you're like, oh, I'm just going to use my credit card just so it's handled. No. They are also in business, right? They are also in business. They are also subtracting expenses from the revenue and getting taxed on the remainder. Let them deal with their stuff. Okay? So those are just a couple of examples. And the easiest way is just to ask yourself, is this for their business or is it for my business? If it's for their business, they pay for it. No questions asked. Period. Exclamation point. I've seen it go south. It's a no. It's a boundary. Okay? So before you receive your first payment from your client, I want you to be tracking certain expenses like your office supplies, right? The programs and courses you've invested in. the internet you're using while you're searching for clients. Remember what I said at the beginning of this masterclass. You don't have to have created profit for the expenses incurred with the intent of profit to count. It's not like expenses only kick in once you start making money. No. Expenses kick in while you are in business. And while you're in business is when you're looking for clients, when you are going through a course or a program, when you are like buying that office chair, buying that laptop. Those are all going into your business before you're even making money. It counts. So that's the kind of stuff I want you to be tracking before you even get into business. Okay? So, how are we doing on time? Great, half an hour. So these are business expenses. It's a very small portion of taxes overall, but it's a really fun part that you're like, oh, before I even get into business, all of these things make it a little more affordable, I guess. Oh, Sarah, what do we have here? Do the bills need to be in my name? I think our internet is under my partner's name. That's a good question. No. But it's probably better if it is. And here's why I say this. Again, not a tax professional. Here's why I say this. When you submit expenses, you don't actually like submit all of these receipts necessarily. The government, again, going to be careful with how I say this. For the most part, they kind of take your word for it. When they then are like, oh, let's check in on this, like maybe do a bit of an audit, then they're going to want to look at sort of like receipts and bills and whose name's on it. However, if you can prove that you live there and you're using it, like I can see it being easier if your name was on it, but I don't think it's something that like you, just because your name's not on it, don't not start to track it. Sarah, give me like a little thumbs up if that makes sense. Keep tracking it, even though your name's not on it. But maybe, you know, if you move or you do a switch or something like that, it would be cleaner if your name was on it. And actually, keyword cleaner, that is something that I'm going to be diving a lot into. So in the January program, I'm going to be diving into taxes a lot more because taxes are they're a lot bigger than just write-offs. They're not complicated, but they are a lot bigger. And clean and tidy is going to make your life so much easier. So that's why in the January program, we're going to talk about like banking, and we're going to be talking about like connecting bank accounts to certain invoicing platforms, and like how to separate, like what does it mean when your grandma sends you $500 for Christmas and then your client pays a $500 invoice? How does the government know that those are two separate things? Clean at the beginning of your business is just a whole lot nicer. And I think a lot of people get away with messy business for sure. But if we start off really clean, and that's something that we're going to dive into in the January program as well. So the January program, I've been talking about it a lot. We're going to dive more into the big tax stuff. We're going to be we're going to be squaring away all the businessy stuff. The businessy stuff was the part that I got really tripped up on as I started to look into virtual assisting. I knew I had the skills to be a virtual assistant. That part I had no doubt about that, but I felt really paralyzed because I was like, I have no idea how to start a business. And I didn't know if it was easy or I was going to end up in jail. Like I had no idea how to start a business or how big or small of a beast it was. So it was the businessy stuff that really tripped me up. I didn't want to get it wrong. I would go to my government website and just be paralyzed by the jargon and like, what is this term and what is this term and do I have to register and what does that mean and how quickly do I have to do these things and like what forms am I collecting and if I've got international clients, what does that mean and what if I'm paid in different currency, like all of these big looming questions, and I didn't even know where to start. Okay, so the number one question I get when I'm DMing all of you ladies, and if I'm not DMing you, shoot me a DM because I'm talking to most of you, is I don't know where to start. And I recognize that question as it's the business stuff, isn't it? It's all of those questions and you don't even know how to start finding the answers. I totally get it. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing in the January program. I've called the January program Emerge, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, we're going to set up the banking. We're going to talk about invoicing platforms and collecting payment and keeping that separate from the money that's coming in personally. And then, what is paying for personal stuff? What is paying for business stuff? How do you track all of that? What's the cleanest way to do it? What would an accountant love to see in April, that's really clean? Okay, we're going to build that spreadsheet and I'm going to teach you what does all of this mean. I want you thinking like an entrepreneur, right? A lot of ladies, they will hire an accountant or a bookkeeper and they'll handle all that stuff for them. I come from the belief that's like, hire a bookkeeper later, but figure it out first, understand it first on your perspective. And then when you hire a bookkeeper to do it or you hire an accountant to do it, at least you're like, I know what they're doing. It's not like, oh, someone's handling something in my business because I don't know how to do it. I want you to understand it. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to set up your agreements and contracts in the January program. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. My favorite word in virtual assisting. Okay, agreements, contracts. We're going to talk about business registration. When do you have to do it? What does it mean? All that kind of stuff. We're going to dive into that. Business registration. I can assure you, you do not need to register your business to get started, which is awesome. And then a lot of boss mindset. Okay. A lot of you have, just like me, have been working for someone your entire life. Maybe you went to school, you were told when to show up, you were told when to get lunch, you were told what you had to do the next day, what was homework, you were told when you could leave. Then you went to a job, you were told when to show up, you were told when to clock in, you were told what to do, when to leave, right? Now you're calling all of those shots. And that's like, you spent years, you spent a lifetime with an employee mindset, which is not a bad thing. But now we have to start to build the mindset, and it's a Rome. It's not going to happen overnight. We're building Rome. Your business mindset, your boundaries, your agreement and contracts with your clients, like what you tolerate, what you do not tolerate. Clients, like what they can ask of you and what they can't ask of you. Hint, clients, like no meeting with a client is mandatory as an independent contractor. That's just like the tip of the iceberg of being an independent contractor. The hours that you work, not determined by your client. So a lot of that boss mindset, like, oh, now I'm working for myself with clients, and this is going to take a lot of reprogramming. So we're going to dive into a lot of that, okay? So Emerge, we're going to start January 10th. It's 4 weeks because I want to give us lots of time. There's some incredible women in it already. I'm really excited. You know my energy. These 4 weeks are going to be like a bit of a party, okay? I'm going to be coming in with high energy. I'm going to have my gifts. We're going to celebrate so many wins. We want to build up your confidence. Confidence is the only thing you need to start a business. Everything else you can figure out. So we're really going to have a supportive community. We're going to have a bit of a party. We're going to have fun. But the goal is during these 4 weeks, you're actually going to take action. I've had a couple people ask me, is this a self-paced program? No. You're going to have lifetime access to it. And so you could, if you wanted to, like drag it on and rewatch the replays and miss the momentum. But no, it's not self-paced. There's way too many self-paced programs out there that people don't complete. It drives me nuts. I think if a program says self-paced, that is the biggest red flag ever. It means you don't have motivation, accountability, support. You don't have someone putting a fire under your butt. You don't have like timelines to accomplish things, checkpoints that keep pulling you forward. So we're going to have things like coaching calls. Okay? The great things about the coaching calls is that you can show up to a coaching call and say, I don't have any questions. And I'm going to be like, but you showed up. But you showed up. You know, when people don't show up for their business, or they say they'll do it next week or next time or next month, you showed up. You went to the gym. You might sit on the mat and not do push-ups, but you went to the gym. That's the magic of a group program that's not self-paced. I'm going to be kind of like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Because at the end of January, I want you to have all this business stuff set up. Again, you're going to have lifetime access. So you can refer back to it. You can catch the replays of all the trainings inside the Facebook group. It's not like regimented, but I want you to be like, I'm ready. And I'm ready to have someone like scoot me along. Okay? We have a lot of fun, right? Cool. So let me jump into investment now because you can expense that stuff. So if you are watching this masterclass live, congratulations. The early bird investment will end tonight. So the early bird investment of the January program is $333. After December 15th, so if you're catching the replay, you literally might miss this cue. It's going to go up to $444. And then as we enter into January, it's going to go up to $555. Pretty normal, right? You can see what I'm doing. It's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Ask me questions, feel motivated, jump in. I've had some ladies jump in at much lower amounts because they're just like, let's go. I'm ready. Because those are the type of people that are going to hit January, hit the Emerge program, and they're going to be like, let's go, man. Let's take these 4 weeks. I'm ready to just like commit and do the work. It's not a lot of work, ladies. But if the concept is stopping you, then let me be your Sherpa. Let me be your motivation. Hop on my train, girl. Hop on my train. Sarah, woo, I'm excited. I need that community. Yes, I'm so excited to have you in it. Yeah. Like, I'm the conductor. Let's ride this train, right? Okay, super good. This is something the business setup stuff is something I normally would offer over $1,000. So this is going to be like a steal of a deal. So yeah, DM me, let me know, comment. I'm super reachable, ladies. Pop into this Facebook group, share the love. And I really hope that this masterclass on expenses and write-offs created some like light bulb moments for you and helped lower the barrier of entry for starting a business. I am obsessed with women who want to start virtual assistant businesses because I have done it and it changed my life and it was super cool. But sometimes that like, oh, I don't have it, sometimes the costs get in the way. They're discouraging to people. And so what I really hope is with this masterclass is that you saw that they're not costs, they're write-offs, and they will help at tax time. You will get taxed on a lower amount. Cool. So if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Very reachable. Again, if you're not in my DMs, hop in there. DM party. And that is the end of the business write-off and expense masterclass. Thanks, ladies. Oh, follow up. Whew. Sharon, you just got that in there. Can you work abroad with a business license from your home city? If you decide to relocate for an extended period of time, do you need to get a license for the new location, or can you continue with the original if you intend to pay taxes in the original location? So Sharon, we're actually going to dive into this in the January program. This is the juicy tax stuff. This masterclass is just about write-offs and expenses. This kind of stuff, international clients, working internationally, who you pay taxes to, who your clients pay taxes to. That's all of the juicy tax stuff that we are going to be talking about in Emerge. So, hope to see you in there. All right, ladies. Bye.